GSA. This is the first lecture in this lecture theatre today. We have a special lecture as part of the Friday lecture series at the MAC, welcoming Chris Mcvoy back to the school today. Chris Mcvoy studied at the University of Virginia, where he did his bachelor's and then did his master's at Columbia University. He joined the practice of Steven Holl in 1993 and then later in 2000 became a partner. He's worked on various projects within the office, for example, the Museum of Art in Kansas City and the Whitney Water Purification Facility, and most recently, most famously to us, he was the partner with Steven Holl in charge of the design for the GSA campus here. So without further ado, I'll introduce Chris Mcvoy to the lecture.
Okay, I will try to keep my voice high for an hour. We'll see if it holds out. Is this really the first lecture in this room as a public lecture? First formal lecture, okay. So maybe it's appropriate that it's not working yet, that I'm the one doing it, and that we couldn't get the mic for it. It's just a reminder to me that we still have some work to do here in the building. And I will also say my laptop it's been a day of technical failure. My laptop keeps crapping out. The good news is, if all this fails, we can just go walk around the building, and I'll just give you a tour. And that may be more fun anyway. But let's give it a try. It's a real honor to be here to lecture to all of you in this building, which I've been working on for 4.5 years. And to see this building realized and full of students brings a tremendous joy. So to be in the building giving a lecture to you, to the students who this building is made for, has a special resonance. And I'm thankful to the Mackintosh School for inviting me to give this first lecture. It has a lot of meaning in many ways. So I am going to speak about the design process for this building. And by the way, if you haven't seen it yet, there's a great exhibition across the way in the Mackintosh Gallery, curated by Christopher Platt and Mark Baines and Jenny Brownrigg, with the assistance of myself in our office. And that gives an in-depth process through time. It's all arranged chronologically, aligned in time. You can really see how the thinking was developed through drawing, through making models. Drawing is a form of thought. Drawing is thinking. And we work both analog drawing, analog models, digital fly-throughs. Today we have all these tools available, but in our view, the digital does not replace the analog. It's just another tool. And I think you'll see that in the exhibition across the way. So to have this building open now, to have this exhibition, you're getting a rare look at everything behind the process. Normally we actually don't get into that. But I'm going to go even further today and show in a kind of timeline here, similar to the timeline over there, how we developed the building. First, I'd like to talk about 5 fundamentals of architecture that we pursue in all of our work, that I feel like this building embodies maybe in one of the highest ways of any work we've done. Horizon. It's a fundamental architecture that no matter what building, where we are, we experience architecture about 5 feet to 5.5 feet above the ground, walking and measuring time through our stride. Here's a photo of the Mars rover Spirit. It's a U.S. rover Spirit. And you can see even on the moon, we experience the world from 5 feet above the ground. And you can even see the rover's tread marks there, its feet. So this is a fundamental of architecture, that it's about seeing space, the horizon. You measure yourselves relative to the horizon. We are upright, that's what makes us human, but perhaps it's the other way around. But this is something that architecture can engage and should engage. And in this building, we aim to do it in relation to the Mackintosh, in relation to the street, and in relation to the sky. So I just note that when we developed this building, we really developed it in section. The plan is very simple in a way, 15-meter structural bays, but we really drew it in section because that's where you can analyze light. It's where the ground meets the sky. And that's where we can also deal with horizon views out and study that. The vertical dimension. Sometimes it's better to start with the section than the plan, and that's what we did. Scale and material. Every work of architecture, no matter whether it's digitally fabricated, digitally conceived, whatever, is made of matter. And matter has mass, density, weight, texture, reflectivity, all these characteristics. And so we try to take that into account and work with that right from the start, right at the conceptual level. And in this building, I'll get into it in a bit, but we can see this building is thick bones and thin skin, contrast to the Mackintosh. The thick bones are the concrete structure, and which are also the driven voids of life. So we textured all the concrete walls, which shape the space, with thin wood slats, whereas the driven voids are perfectly smooth steel formed that abstract the light and be kind of holders of the light. But right from the start, we're thinking about the material and the weight. Light and space. This maybe is the most important. Steven Holl likes to say, when someone asked him what's his favorite material, he said light. And it's something throughout our practice. This is the Helsinki, the Finnish Museum of Contemporary Art called Kiasma in Helsinki. It's actually the first project that I started working on in the office as a project architect. And in there, we already began working with the horizontal light of northern latitudes, like you have here in this gallery. The whole building is a torus, and it has a facade facing south. It's like a catcher's mitt that brings light in and scoops it down. And it's light and space, enough space where light can play, that light becomes the volume. And here in the Mackintosh, here in the Reed building, I think, I'm very happy to have been here for 5 days walking around, whether it's cloudy or sunny or both. It was raining and sunny, the typical Glaswegian weather, and the building, I hope and I feel pulses with natural light. It's sensitized to light. Land and cityscape. This, you could say, maybe is another interpretation of sight, that where we live has a very specific, each site has a very specific character. And it's not just its geographic latitude, it's its quality of light, quality of sound, quality of movement, the level of density of urbanism. This is Times Square, and it's just a kind of interesting assault on the senses. But it's the perceptual aspects of space, as well as the historical, cultural, and geographic, that we aim to connect to. And this is a recent photo. I'm showing a few photos by the photographer Ivan Van, who was here, maybe some of you met him a week and a half ago. So we're just starting to capture it. But here, how to make a building in the 21st century in a stone city, in a city primarily 19th and early 20th. And I'll get into more detail on this, but we envision this kind of matte, translucent glass materiality that glows in the long nights, in a kind of complementary contrast to the stone, particularly the Mackintosh. Time movement. Architecture is an art of time. In that way, it's like music. Perhaps architecture and music are the arts that are most connected to time, because unlike a painting or even a sculpture, our perception of the building is formed as we move through it, through time. So all the little incidents, when you touch a doorknob, to where you get to where you're going, all those things build up to give you that perception. So we aim to design through perspective, overlapping perspective, and work with the element of time in the design process. And this building, maybe more than any other, I feel that we've done, embodies and takes advantage of the time aspect of architecture, and mainly through the circuit, the stepped ramps that go all the way up. Because each floor is different, feels different when you reach it, and every corner, and the meandering geometry of the stairs are a kind of melody against the rhythm of the driven voids in the structure. Before I get into the design process of the rebuilding, I did want to talk about one other project. Normally I would show 5 little projects, but I want to spend more time on the rebuilding. And I picked one that maybe is most relevant. It's the Nelson Atkins Museum. It opened in 2007. I was also the partner in charge for co-designing with Steven of this building. This building is also about light and movement in the landscape. It's also about art, but it's about exhibition of art. It's a museum, which is very different, of course, than an art school. But there is a relationship. We've done several art schools, several art museums, and it's the joy as an architect to be able to work in both ways, where you're working, creating spaces to create art and spaces to exhibit art. The concept here was to make a building of landscape and light in contrast to the 1930s temple art that's in stone. It's also related in terms of a stone and a glass translucent building like this one. And here the charge was to add on as much, double the size of this museum. And we, right from the start, said you can't just build a block. There's this beautiful sculpture garden. Let's make a building of landscape and light so that it does not compete with the stone temple. And it creates a kind of fusion of architecture and landscape and the experience of art. So this is one of Steven's many watercolors from right after our first visit to the site, where we began thinking complementary contrast, the stone and the feather. Klaus Oldenburg had an installation museum at that time about the stone and the feather, and that triggered us in thinking about this complementary contrast to build in a different material, but that's considered to be complementary to the other, so that each, the old and the new, heighten the experience of the other in a kind of symbiotic relationship. So Steven defined the way that we could make these kinds of complementary contrasts. The original building, the stone was heavy, ours is light. 1933, 2002. Directed circulation, which is symmetrical. Open circulation, more meandering. Bounded. It's all, the old building was internal, ours was fused into the landscape. Et cetera, hermetic meshing. And what happened, this idea to project the galleries into the landscape, we developed, and then we introduced these lenses. So we were thinking about it almost like light projecting out into the landscape. And I thought, we were doing a light laboratory for the American Institute of Science and studying how lenses refract. And we thought, if we have a series of lenses along that projection, they can refract space the way that lenses refract the light. And most importantly, these lenses bring the light into the galleries below. So it's like we took the sculpture part, lifted it up, fit the building in, put the sculpture part back down, and then the lenses up through the grass. This is one of Steven's watercolors. And then the structure of those lenses comes up in the middle, and the walls can splay out to cut the light, to bring the light down into the galleries below the sculpture garden. So really the galleries are all on one level with this landscape cut and folded around it. This was we were struggling with how to express this in the landscape. And I said to an intern, you have to make the landscape over the space while keeping the chipboard continuous. You can never cut it into two pieces. It has to be one piece. And so this became a kind of language. You can see there are slices which allow views into the garden, but it maintains the continuity of the landscape. And this is the completed building with the 5 lenses that bring light in during the day to the galleries, and at dusk begin to light the sculpture garden like large Japanese lanterns. The first lens is the largest. It's the entrance, the new entrance lobby, and there you can see it's set at a right angle to the old building, creating a courtyard, shaping space with old and new. And as it goes down into the landscape, the geometry of the lenses begin to dance and become more related to the kind of landscape geometries. At the center of this court, we made a large reflecting pool. We put all the parking that was here on the ground, and we worked with the sculptor Walter de Maria, who died about 6 months ago. I don't know if you know Walter's work. One of the best sculptors of the 20th century, no question. And he did this gold-leaf rectangle with a slight curve, and then you'll see in a minute. We had lenses giving light to the garage, and we made them round moons with a neon. So this piece is called One Sun and 34 Moons. It's a gold leaf rectangle that changes in the light dramatically at each moment, and it has a slight curve mimicking the curvature of the Earth or the Sun. And of course, the seasonal play is dramatic in many different conditions. The water can freeze, there can be snow. At night, the lenses that bring light into the garage, which he named these moons, 34 moons with a neon ring, float in this pool of water with the sun. Below in the garage, the moons bring natural daylight in under the water. So I had a little video, I couldn't get it to work, but of course, water acts like a lens, so any slight movement on the surface from the wind is a little shimmer, and that makes an active lens, so that if the spots on the floor of the garage are like a moving tapestry of light. I went there one hot August day, and there was a family who had put a picnic blanket under one of these and some chairs and was having a picnic in the garage because it was cool. And I thought, okay, if you can make a garage for a picnic in, that's not bad. And I called this the vehicular arrival hall to kind of elevate it, and the director liked that. So that helped us make it special. Because everybody drives in Kansas City in America, nobody's coming. So this is an arrival hall. Coming in from the garage, then you come in with the first lens and have a glimpse of the stone building above, and the building feels much larger on the inside than the outside. And that's something that Steven Holl has always believed. A professor said that to him when he was at the University of Washington, that a building should feel larger on the inside when you go in than it does from the outside. And I think, I think our work does. I think he has been successful in that, and I think this building as well. When you come in the lobby and you look up, and you see that vertical space, and there's studio after studio after studio. The surfaces, the walls are polished polish, and the lens is matte, a kind of inversion. So it's a vessel for light. So what you expect to be shiny, which is the glass, is matte. What you expect to be matte, which is the lens, is glossy, and it gives a real play of light in this space. The glass itself, there's many layers which diffuses light to the point that it becomes almost atmospheric. There you see the gallery plan going down into the landscape, a series of well-proportioned galleries. The thick walls that you see are the lenses. Each one of those is the center wall of the lens. I don't have a point, but you can see the figures of where it's open to the ceiling. And circulation is key to us in this building, I'd say, even more so. But in galleries, to have loops so you don't have dead ends, a series of loops. If you go to there's some museums today that just fail miserably in this. But you can have a continuous loop and see all the collection, smaller loops to see some of the collection. It gives the viewer a kind of power of choice, but an order as well, because there's the main spine, the big dashed line, that goes down along the landscape that becomes the primary route. These are the galleries with the T-wall going up and cupping the light. You can see the lenses here are, the landscape is at the top of the wall, so the lenses are above, that diffuse light is coming through the lenses and cut into the space. And it's so atmospheric that it really picks up the changing color of the south versus north, etc. So the walls are very simple. The rooms are simple for the hanging of art, the appreciation of art. But the ceiling is a kind of folded plane that continues down, mimicking the folded plane of the landscape above, kind of continuity, a flow. But then it's punctured vertically with the lenses, so you have this flow with the rhythm of the light, and the architecture becomes more and more sculpted and organic when the light comes in. Very simple to fill in the walls, and it becomes as if the light is sculpting the space. Here you see the difference between north and south. It's a double glass wall, and all the structure and the shading between the light. And there you see how it cups the light, brings it down. You can also see how, as the T-wall goes up, it splits, and we actually have openings through the top. So you see a bit of warm light on the north side. Here's on the other side. So we're mixing north and south light. So you see the warm light from the south above on the north side of the lens. So this is the whole side of the lens facing north, but because it has this hole above, you call these flutters. you get the warm light. And this building has that with the dripping water. That's the main purpose. In fact, I better move fast so I can get to this building. But we are bringing the South Line and the North Line studios in a similar way, slices of light. That's a solid piece in a cubic gallery. That's an Gucci court at the end of the sequence where we really could connect art, architecture, and landscape. It's a sculpture that lots of light and views out looking at the landscape. And you have the great Gucci collection. And in fact, we designed this terrace outside based on the Gucci's stone terrace at his Japanese studio. And that fountain was two stone chunks which had water. We took the bed of that out the glass wall and really connect to the landscape. And we forced them a fusion of art, architecture, and landscape. The lenses then at night, Sculpture Park has become like a destination in the city, and people hang out there and enjoy it. They turn them on and then they turn them off and then on again every year, so it's a kind of marketing movie. So here we are, closer to home. And this project for us, the Mackintosh building was very influential to Steven Holl and myself as students. Steven had a professor named Irwin Point, who lectured in history at the University of Washington in Seattle, who dedicated a lecture to it. I had Kenneth Frampton, who dedicated a lecture to it. So for both of us independently, it was very important. And when I came to Glasgow, especially in 2002, to see the building with my wife, we stayed on Renfrew Street, one of those terrible bed and breakfasts where there's still a sign that says, "We have color TV." And, so I stayed there just 2 nights just to see the Mackintosh. And so when I found out that there was this competition that we were going to be building, we immediately put our everything into getting this project. And it was a great selection process. 250 architects submitted. They asked us to submit not only our qualifications, but one board of process. They said, take one of your projects and show us your process. So we did this board of Nelson Atkins showing how to do the process. So right from the start, we were thinking about our experience, our qualification files, and everything. And from that, there was a short list of 8. Great jury led by Sean Reed, the director at the time, but a lot of experts and architects like Christine Harley from the Bartlett, Izzy Mitzstein from here, a great jury. And they went to our office and they went to all the architects' buildings and offices. So it was informed by the ideas we come up, but also the buildings we made. You know, you can't tell if the building is really good until you go there. The photographs all the time. So that was great. And we had 3 months to come up with some concepts, not a final plan. And we worked very closely with JM Architects at that time. I had known Henry from an attempt at a competition before, so as soon as I heard about this, I called Henry and said, "Do you want to team up?" And he said, "Sure." So we were having weekly Skypes during the competition where Henry and Ian Alexander were advising us on what is Glasgow like, the climate, what's the school like, what's the culture of the school. They were critiquing what we were doing, they were doing analysis of their urban fabric. So it was a collaboration from the start. And, you know, this building is a collaboration between Steven Holl Architects and JM Architects, particularly Henry McKinnon and Craig Tate and Paul Twining, but everyone else in JM who worked on their project. Okay, Glasgow, we're on a drone, which is fantastic. We have height and views. And the main thing is, we're across from the Mackintosh. So we started with an in-depth analysis of the Mackintosh. We spent 6 weeks just analyzing light, space, understanding that I could see there were things we could tie into and make deep connections. And through that process, we came up with 5 to 7 concepts, actually. And you can see them over there, the competition ones are over there, that were inspired by Mackintosh, but then some of them came out of new hopes for the 21st century that had to do with art, the teaching and making of art today that are actually different than Mackintosh. But the starting point was Mackintosh. And the points, the concepts that came from Mackintosh are plan studio volumes. The Mackintosh building is made the studio volumes as the building block. It's a very simple plan, complex, beautiful section. And, but he's thinking from the start about the space where the students are learning and making art. That's the core of an art school. The proportions, the light, there's something like over 20 ways that light comes into the Mackintosh. Through clear stories, skylights, sidelights, direct light. So this was an analysis we did. These are just a few images from that analysis, including, of course, the great double-height cubic studios on the right there. They get both skylight from above and north light from the side. So right from the start, we were thinking about making the building out of studio volumes, like Mackintosh, in section, with a simple plan. A new language, a different language. Just like Mackintosh has the great studio volumes, and we started with that as a building light, we were looking at all his complexity of light, the way he brought light in, and then thinking, could we make a new language of light that's hopefully as rich as his, but in a new way? And so, really, this is a sketch Steven Holl did after one of our crits that we were working on together, where the south light could be something more controlled and directed in smaller apertures. The north light, you'll see, we have the glass kicking out, as you know, in the studios to capture the north sky exposure. And the driven voids of light become really a kind of the touchstone of, they come from the Mackintosh windows of the library. So while we were studying the studios in the Mackintosh, we were also studying the exterior of the Mackintosh and all the ways that he makes apertures for light. Sometimes the windows push out, sometimes they're pushed in, sometimes they're pushed in and have a frame that pushes out. It's an incredible language of aperture, the way that it corresponds to a language of light. And the most inspiring are the three windows on the west facade in the library. This facade, of course, was completed the second half of the building, completed in 1909. So Mackintosh was really coming full into his own, and it has this incredible innovation that it's nice that the east facade is, it doesn't have this kind of incredible forward innovation. These triple-story windows, and what captured us, we were having this pinup. There were a lot of critiques in our office. And we asked outside critics to come in. And Franklin sometimes, he came in on the school and critiqued it. But in this case, it was a professor named Michael Bell who presented this analysis. We already had the sectional idea of the stacks and studios. We were thinking about how to make a new language of light. And Michael said, these windows are like driven voids of light, driven down through the wall of the building. And we thought, yeah, we should drive voids of light through the center of our building. As a new language. It's a deep block with a circulation in the middle. These could bring and animate the core of our building. And what Mackintosh did is it pushes the windows out from the facade and into the space to make a volume for nothing but light. And that sort of giving light its own space to play and enter the building in a variety of ways. Became inspiration. He had three, we have three driven boards. So this is right after that, a model. We have a digital printer in our office that Steven made some watercolors like this one, and he and I looked at some others, and then one of our talented staff started translating that into a computer model and made this digital model, a whole series of models, which you can see over there. And we got very excited when we started to see how effective this could be. And you can see, even in the sketch, Steven's thinking of tilting the driven voice to the south to capture the low light of the cluster. And then we developed that further with different apertures where we could have direct light in there. You can see a driven void just on the lower left there, bringing in a little bit of light, but also clear story lights up above, skylights as well. The third point that came right at the competition was this idea of complementary contrast. The Mackintosh building is one of the best stone buildings, stone exteriors ever made. And it's a thick skin that's carved, and it's carved with exquisite craft and volume and geometry. the interior, the structure is thin bones, it's a school structure. And we were thinking that for our time, rather than, there's no way to mimic that. There would be no way we could make a stone building anywhere near like what Mackintosh did. And if we tried, it would just bring down the Mackintosh. It would be a kind of copy. And we weren't interested in that anyway. And so we thought, let's make a complementary material, complementary contrast. So the Mackintosh is thick skin, stone, thin bones, and our building is thick bones, concrete structure. The structure shapes the space, and thin skin, translucent matte glass that is kind of alabaster-like, that's soft, and that picks up the variation of the light in the atmosphere. It looks very different in the sun than on a cloudy day. And during the day and during the night, kind of register the atmosphere. Another thing from the Mackintosh, another lesson. That building has changed programs many times. What were the architecture schools are something completely different now. And even digital media, which Mackintosh could have never anticipated, work well in the studios. If you make well-proportioned studios with great light, they can work for anything, including things like media that we can't even conceive of right now. So we started with the idea of making a series of great studios. And working with the school then, after we won the competition, over a year, monthly meetings, figuring out which type of media should go where, how the departments should be organized. And the great thing is, because all the studios have a good proportion of natural light, it can transform through time. These are early sketches of Steven's, where he's already thinking north and south light mix, and he's designing the building from the inside. As well as the inside from the start. The studio is a core, and these are studies from the same digital model series where we're looking, you can see driven north, south light, north light, cool north light on the right, etc. But the height, the other thing about Mackintosh is he's generous with the height. And I remember, along the process at some point, one of the sort of financial administrators says, why do you need the studios to be so high? Can't they just be 3 meters high? And the good thing is we had the Mackintosh to refer to. There were many times where Mackintosh sort of helped us because we could say, look at those spaces over there. There's a reason why students feel creative energy in that space. If you make a generous height with light, enough room for light to play, and openness, it's easier to think more expansively. Even if you're working down here at your desk, because you have that space. That's our hope. And you tell me if I'm right or wrong, but that's how we feel about space. Circuit of social connection. This is a key point, and Mackintosh, of course, has a circuit, the quarters down the middle. We wanted to take it a step further. I mean, for us, we've done quite a few university buildings. Circulation space is the social heart of the school. It's where you meet each other, it's where you meet faculty, and so we wanted, right from the start, to connect all these studios vertically with a circuit, a path. And, I love the fact that I see very few people taking elevators in this building. And it's those chance encounters. You see somebody, you see a friend, you see faculty, you can have these informal discussions that you might not be able to have if you were all closed off and you didn't have that open circuit. So that's right from the start. And then the idea that the circuit could be woven through the driven voids, creating a kind of interaction of light and time, and sun to the time of individual moving through space. Green space is green innovation. So Steven, on his first visit during the competition, thought about this idea that when he was standing in the Mackintosh double-height studios, and he thought, the view from those studios to our building has to be something incredibly special. So he thought of a garden terrace, and in a way incorporating the kind of landscape piece in the city, a green place that of course is about diversity and all these things, but it's also a psychological movie. In addition, low energy, is Andrew McDowell here? I'm not sure he's here earlier. We worked with O'Barrett, they did all the engineering, and to look at the most sustainable low energy way to do the building and to that biomass. I'll get into that in a minute. But that's the goal of a low energy environmental building, not only because it's good for the environment in terms of keeping pollution down, but also psychologically. It's very good to it. There's Henry and Ian and Steven and I. This was when we presented the interview at the competition. I don't know if you can tell, Steven and I are actually photoshopped into the image. But we couldn't actually be here to take the photograph. And we wanted to show that, we were working with Henry and Ian and we're a team, New York, Glasgow. So somebody in our office, or James' office, I can't remember, photoshopped us. And so we showed this at the interview, and Steven said, you'll notice everyone in the photo is smiling except me. And that's because this project is incredibly important, and I'm determined to get it right. So, anyway, what I love is there's this little slice of natural light right over me, So I have a connection to the sky even when I'm standing here, and I can see people walking back and forth. It's great. Probably need to have shades that block that off or something, but it's great. So let me go into more detail, and I'll be a little quick. We built a lot of models, we did a lot of colors, Steven did a lot of watercolors, Glasgow Architects, Eric did a lot of colors. You have to work and work and work and work. But the great thing is we had these fundamental concepts driving the design. And I think in the exhibition across the street, you see how these ideas where we're trying to connect to the key aspects of a specific project, the kind of ideas that make the project bigger than itself. If you have those guides, those 5 concepts, they guide your whole process. And I think we hope that actually they get stronger and stronger through the process rather than being compromised. And it's very hard to do that. There's so many forces in architecture trying to water it down when you build a building. There's just every day somebody trying to compromise something for cost and function. And as the architect, you have to hang on and you have to insist on the concepts, but also be flexible about how to achieve them. Sometimes you have to turn what you're doing on its head, achieve what you want to do better and more economically. But the concepts are guides, and you have to hang on to them. Anyway, we built a lot of models. You can see there's only the ones across the street are just a fraction. Because you need to see, we like models because it's the true test of space and light. You need to see how the light plays in the wall. You can take it and tear out a wall. There's a kind of, you're working in physical space in a way that gives you more direct interaction than if you're looking at a 2-dimensional screen. It doesn't mean digital model isn't important, and we use them. In fact, we use them to make these models. We have Rhino that drives the CNC mill. The 3D printer. And we also do fly-throughs, I'll show you in a minute to get a sense of the space. But you need to see it. This is one of the first models during the competition. These are dated, some of these are dated. Does the date show up? Oh, the date doesn't show up on the screen. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This was right after the pinup, where we said, let's try these different voids, and we were working with the staff about Steven was showing the watercolors, and we were working to see how that could work. And then you see that one slice there. That's right from the start, and that exists in the fashion textile studio that has the screen bends. That slice is still there right from the start. Here you can see that's actually the assembly building on the lower left. So already, I'll get into that in a minute. But the fact that we decided to keep the assembly building. These are studies of light and section. We don't have all the programming yet. It's about architectural language. It's about space and light for a kind of idealized studio experience that's inspiring. And this was the section from the competition. You can see it got quite a bit more dense. We didn't have enough area at that time. We didn't know how to end the driven voids of the sky. But what we did know is that we had great high studios, north and south, either side of the circuit of the driven voids. We were looking at the low sun angles. Also, right from the competition, you see the garden terrace directly across from the double height Mackintosh studios. So then we won, and we were ecstatic. And then